And men may use time travel for any number of reasons, both good and bad. But when you've done it, the results may be unexpected. The Return of William Proxmire by Larry Niven. Read by Karl. Through the peephole in Andrew's front door, the man made a startling sight. He looked to be in his 80s. He was breathing hard and streaming sweat. He seemed slightly more real than most men, photogenic as hell, tall and lean, with stringy muscles and no potbelly, running shoes and a day pack and a blue windbreaker, and an open smile. His face was familiar, but from where? Andrew opened the front door, but left the screen door locked. Hello? Dr. Andrew Minsky? Yes, Mermaid clicked. William Proxmire, big as life. The ex-senator smiled in acknowledgement. I've only just finished reading about you in the Tribune, Dr. Minsky. May I come in? It had never been Andrew Minsky's ambition to invite William Proxmire into his home. Still, sure, coming in. Sit down and have some coffee. Or do your stretches. Andrew was running himself when he could find the time. Thank you. Andrew left on the rug with one knee pulled against his chest. From the kitchen he called, Never in my life expected to meet you face to face. You must have seen the article on me on Tipler and Penrose? Yes, the reporter and the media got it all wrong. I bet you are. Any politician would. Well, the Tribune implied that what we've got is a time machine. Of course we don't. We've got a schematic based on a theory. Then again, it's a new improved version. Doesn't involve an indefinitely long cylinder you'd have to make out of neutronium. Good. What would it cost? Andrew Minsky sighed. Had the politician even recognized the reference? He said, Oh, hard to say. He picked up 2 cups and a coffee pot and went back in. Is that it? You came looking for a time machine? The old man was sitting on the yellow rug with his legs spread wide apart and his fingers grasping his right foot. He released, folded his leg head to heel, tossed forehead to toes, held, then stood up with a sound like popcorn popping. He said, Close enough. How much would it cost? Depends on what you're after. I can't give you a grant if you can't name a figure. Andrew set his cup down very carefully. He said, No, of course not. I'm retired now, but people still owe me favors. I want a ride. One trip. What would it cost? Andrew hadn't had enough coffee yet. He didn't feel fully awake. I have to think out loud a little. Okay? Mass isn't a problem. You go back as far as you like if... I say under 60 years. Cost might be 12, 13 million if you could get us access to the anti-proton accelerator at Washburn, or maybe CERN in Switzerland. Otherwise you'd have to build that too. By the way, you're not expecting to get younger, are you? I hadn't thought about that. Good. The theory depends on maneuvering between event points. You don't ever go backward. Where and when, Senator? William Proxmire leaned forward with his hands clasped. Picture this. A Navy officer walks the deck of a ship, coughing, late at night in the 1930s. Suddenly, an arm snakes around his neck. A needle plunges into his buttocks. The deck of a ship at sea? Proxmire nodded, grinning. You're just having fun, aren't you? Something to do with while jogging now he's retired? Put it this way, Proxmire said. I've read the article. It linked up with an old daydream of mine. Looked up your address. You're within easy running distance. Hope you don't mind. Oddly enough, Andrew found he didn't. His hand before his morning coffee was a recreation. So, dream a little. Think of a moving ship. I was going to say it's ridiculous, but it isn't. We'd have to deal with much higher velocities. Any point in the Earth's surface is spinning up to half a mile per second, circling the sun at 18 miles per. Principle, I think we could solve all with one stroke. We just catch one pack of deck, say, over a period of few seconds, and integrate the record into the program. Send coming home. You can do it? Well, if we can't solve that one, we can't do anything else either. You'll be on a tight schedule, though. Senator, what's the purpose of the visit? Have you ever had daydreams about a time machine and a scope-suited rifle? Andrew's eyebrows went up. Sure, but little boy hasn't. Hitler, I suppose? For me, it was always Lyndon Johnson. Senator, I do not commit murder under any circumstances. A time machine, a scope-sighted rifle, and me, William Proxmire said dreamily. I get more anonymous letters than you believe, even now. They tell me about every space advocate dreams about me and a time machine and a scope-sighted rifle. I started daydreaming too. My fantasy involves a time machine and a hypodermic full of antibiotics. Andrew laughed. You're planning to do someone good behind their back? Right. Who? Robert Anson Heinlein. All laughter dropped away. Why? It's a good deed, isn't it? Sure. Why? You know the name? Over the past 4 years or so, I've talked to a great many people in science in the space program. I kept hearing the name Robert Heinlein. They were seduced into science because they read Heinlein at age 12. They were the people I found hard to deal with. No grasp of reality. Fanatics. Andrew suspected the senator had met more of these than he realized. Heinlein spun off ideas at a terrific rate. Why the writers picked them up? Along with a distrust for arrogance combined with stupidity or ignorance, particularly in politicians. Well, Heinlein's literary career began after he left the Navy because of lung disease. You're trying to destroy the space program. Will you help? Andrew was about to tell him to go to hell. He didn't. I'm still talking. What do you want to destroy the space program? I didn't at first. I was opposed to waste, proxmire said. My colleagues, they'll spend money on any pet project as if there was a money tree out there somewhere. Milk price supports, Andrew said gently. For several decades now, the great state of Wisconsin had taken tax money from the other states so that the price they paid for milk would stay up. Proxmire's lips twitched. Without milk price supports, there will be places where families with children can't buy milk. Why? The old man shook his head hard. Just remember that I don't have to answer that question anymore. My point is that the government has spent far more taking rocks from the moon and photographs from Saturn. Our economy would be far healthier if that money had been spent elsewhere. I'd rather shoot Lyndon, eliminate welfare, save a lot more money that way. A minute ago you were opposed to murder. The old man did have a way with words. Point taken. Could you get us funding? It'd be a guaranteed Nobel Prize. I like the fact that you don't need a scope-sighted rifle. A hypo full of sulfur drugs doesn't have to be kept secret. What antibiotic? I don't know what cures consumption. I don't know which year or what ship. I'll get people to look these things up if I want to know. Came straight here as soon as I read the morning paper. Why not? I run every day, any direction I like. But I haven't heard you say it's impossible, Andrew. And I haven't heard you say you won't do it. More coffee? Yes, thank you. Proxmire left alone in the kitchen. For that, Andrew was grateful. He was never progressive always had the guard's expression. There was simply too much to think about. He preferred not to consider the honors. Assuming he changed the past. How would he prove it before a board of his peers? How would I prove it now? What would I have to show them? He murmured under his breath while the coffee water was heating. Books? Books get written? Newspapers? There are places to print any newspaper headline I ask for. Waffen SS to build work camp in Death Valley. I can make Robert Kennedy $50 for a lot less than $13 million. But the Nobel Prize wasn't the point. Keeping Robert Heinlein alive a few years longer, was that the point? Shouldn't be. Heinlein wouldn't have thought so. Would the science fiction field really have collapsed without the menace from Earth? Traditionally, the science fiction field would have named Campbell, not Heinlein. But think, wasn't magazines that have sucked Andrew Minsky into taking advanced physics classes? Or Double Star, Red Planet, Anderson's Tau Zero, Vance's Cheshire series, then the newsstand magazines, the subscriptions, then, of course, he dropped all to pursue a career. Proxmire's staff investigated his past, as they must if he was at all serious. They would find that Andrew Minsky, Ph.D., hadn't read a science fiction magazine in 15 years. Proxmire's voice came from the other room. Of course, it'd be a major chunk of funding. Wouldn't my old friends be surprised to find me backing a scientific project? How's the coffee coming? Done. Andrew carried the pot in. I'll do it, he said. That is, I and my associates will build a time machine. We need funding. We need active assistance in using the Washburn accelerator. We should be ready for a man-rated experiment in 3 years, I think. We won't fail. He sat. He looked Proxmire in the eye. Let's keep thinking, though. A Navy officer walks the tilting deck of what would now be an antique Navy ship. An arm circles his throat. He gets the skinny wrists and elbows, bends the wrist backwards, and throws the intruder into the sea. They train Navy men to fight, you know, and he was young and you're old. I keep in shape, Proxmire said coldly. A medical man who performs autopsies once told me about men and women like me. We run 2 to 5 miles a day. We die in our 80s and 90s and 100s. A fall kills us, or a car accident. Get into us and you find veins and arteries you could run a toy train through. He was serious. I'm afraid you were thinking of taking on a blackjack or a trank gun. No, I'll say it anyway. Don't hurt him. Proxmire smiled. That would be missing the point. And if that worked out, Andrew would take his chances with the rest. He'd been reaching for a beer while he thought about revising the time machine paper he'd done with Tipper and Penrose 4 years ago. Somewhere he shifted over to daydreams. Then it set him off on a weird track indeed. It was like double vision in his head. The time machine, never built, had put William Proxmire, the ex-senator, on the moving deck of the USS Roper on a gray mid-morning in December 1933. Andrew never daydreamed this vividly. He slapped his flat belly and wondered why, and remembered. He was 10 pounds heavier in the daydream because he'd been too busy to run. So much detail. He was remembering a sweaty, razor-sharp nightmare from last night. The kind of which you know you're doing something bizarrely stupid but can't figure out how to stop. He'd reached for Henry Weinhardt's Budweiser from the refrigerator in his kitchen in the office at Washburn, where the Weinhardts always ran out first, while their party team watched their monitors, while the KCET funding drive whined in his living room. In his head there was double vision, double memories, double sensations. The world of quantum physics was blurred in spots. But this was his kitchen, and he could hear KCET begging for money a room away. Andrew walked in his living room and found William Proxmire dripping on his yellow rug. No, wait, that's the other... The photogenic old man tossed the spray hypo on Andrew's couch, stripped off his hooded raincoat, inverted it, and dropped it on top. He's trying to smile, but the fear showed through. Andrew, what am I doing here? Andrew had said, my head feels like 2 flavors of cotton. Give me one. I'm trying to remember 2 histories at once. I should have had more time. And then it should have been the Washburn Accelerator. You said. Yes, well, I did and I didn't. Welcome to the wonderful world of Schrodinger's cat. How did it go? You find a young lieutenant, junior grade gunnery officer alone on deck? The raincoat was soaking his cushions. In the rain. Losing his breakfast oversight in the rain. Pulmonary tuberculosis, consumption. Good riddance to an ugly disease. You rushed them to the deck? No, I told him I was from the future. I showed him a spray hypo. He'd never seen one. I was just a civilian on a Navy ship. That got his attention. I told him if it was Robert Heinlein, I'd have a cure for his cough. Cure for his cough? I didn't say it would kill him otherwise. Didn't say it wouldn't, and he didn't ask. But he may have assumed it wouldn't have come for anything trivial. I knew his name. This was Heinlein, not some Wisconsin dairy farmer. He wanted to believe I was a time traveler. He did believe. I gave him a shot. Andrew, I feel cheated. Me too, get used to it. But it was Andrew who was beginning to smile. The older man hardly heard. His ears must have been ringing with that long dead storm. No, I would have liked to talk to him. Supposed to have 22 minutes more. I gave him a shot and the whole scene popped like a soap bubble. Why'd I come back here? Because we never got funding for research into time travel. Ah. There have been changes. What changes? It wasn't just remembering. It was a matter of selecting points of memories that were mutually exclusive, then judging between them. It was maddening, but it could be done. Andrew said, the Washburn Accelerator goes with the time machine, goes with the funding. My apartment goes with no time machine, goes with no funding, goes with... Bill, let's go outside. It should be dark by now. Proxmire didn't ask why. He looked badly worried. The sun had set, but the sky wasn't exactly black. In a line across a smaller, dimmer full moon, 4 rectangles blazed like windows into the sun. Andrew sighed with relief. Collapse of the wave function. This was reality. William Proxmire said, don't make me guess. Solar power satellites. Looking glass 3 through 6. What happened to your time machine? Apollo 11 landed on the moon on July 20th, 1969, just like clockwork. Apollo 13 left a month too early, but something still exploded on the surface module, so I guess it wasn't a meteor. Shit. Hey? They didn't get back. They died. We murdered them. Then, can we put it back? Should he put it back? We're still coming together in his head. Let's see. NASA tried to cancel Apollo 18, but it was a hell of a running campaign. Why? From whom? The spec fic community went absolutely apeshit. Okay, Bill, I've got it now. Well, you were right. The whole science fiction magazine business just faded out in the 50s, last remnants of the pulp era. Campbell alone couldn't save it. Then in the 60s, the literary crowd rediscovered the idea. There must have been an empty ecological niche and the lit crits moved in. Speculative fiction, specs fic, the literature of the possible. The New Yorker ran short stories and critical reviews of novels. They thought Planet of the Apes was wonderful, and Sully's Complaint, which was Robert Silverberg's study of a telepath. Tom Wolfe started appearing in Esquire with his bizarre alien cultures. Can't remember an issue of this certain even posted didn't have some spec fic in it. Anderson, Vance, MacDonald. John D. MacDonald turns out novels set in a ring the size of Earth's orbit. Neither writers were good enough that some of the early ones couldn't keep up, but a few did by taking to hard science teachers. Benford and Forward did in reverse. Jim Benford's a plasma physicist, but he wrote like he swallowed a college English teacher. Robert Forward wrote a novel called Neutron Star, but he built the Forward mass detector too. Wonderful. There's a lot of spec fake fans in the military. When Apollo 21 burned up during re-entry, they raised so much hell that Congress took the manned space program away from NASA and gave it to the Navy. William Proxmire glared and Andrew Minsky grinned. Now, you left office in the 60s because of the cheese boycott. When you tried to chop the funding for the shuttle, the spec fic community took offense. They stopped eating Wisconsin cheese. The San Francisco Locust told you the cheese man. Most of your supporters must have eaten nothing but their own cheese for about 8 months. Then Goldwater chopped the milk price supports. Golden fleece, he called it. So you were out, and now there's no time machine. We could build one, Proxmire said. Rescue Apollo 13? The possibility had to be considered. Andrew remembered the 20 years that followed the Apollo flights. One set of memories, lost goals, pointlessness and depression, political fatishness leading nowhere. In the other, half a dozen space stations, government and military and civilian, moon base and moon base polar, life photographs of the Mars project half finished on the lunar plane, sitting on a hemispherical Orion-style shield made from aluminum and focused lunar dust. I do not commit murder under any circumstances. I don't think so, Bill. We don't have the political support. We don't have the incentive. Where would a Nobel Prize come from? Can't prove there was ever a different timeline for this one. Besides, this isn't just a more interesting world, it's safer too. Admiral Heinlein doesn't let the Soviets build spacecraft. Proxmire stopped breathing for a moment. Then, I suppose he wouldn't. Nope. He's taken 6 other people on the Mars expedition, though. They're paid their share of the cost in fusion bombs for propulsion. The end.